is a little issues, but I'm getting there.
I
So,
believe Chevron John has a hand in what's going wrong with you this morning.
all
But
right. So I get
the overflow of our success in over yesterday's.
it was great. It was a
I,
great.
I said overflow. You saying great? I suppose you mean the same thing.
Wonderful time out there yesterday. I mean,
Morning, Senator Chevron, and congrats to you. Oh, the cup is falling over, flowing, yeah. And running over. Let me stick with my script.
I wonder if I could tease something and say it was a taste of what is to come on the New Democratic Party. Yeah, and I'll say that
foretaste.
That event, I've gone to an event already. That was a national event. Let me put it that way. Organized by the government. And at least 3 or 4 different persons thought that they should tell me, what are you doing here? I said, what do you mean? Are you coming out of event? I said, no, it's a national event. I can't remember what was the event, but yesterday was just not doing what? Was just yeah.
You can't say just over here. This is not renewed.
I said not renewed first. And then I go to because the over team winning, you know, so
you want to go fancy one these days, you
know. So the unity, Major, and the togetherness was amazing. That persons were there laughing and playing on the same team and everything, and remind me what St. Vincent used to be back in the days on the NDP. You go and you vote who you want, but at the end of the day, we had a cricket game, the whole village turn out. You never know the captain is NDP or ULP. The captain was a Calico man, a man from large village, those things. So I love that feeling. That's what I took away most from yesterday's event. That I can't wait to look forward to the days when we have one St. Vincent again.
Well, but I join with you and I accept a very important point that you're making. I start by congratulating the Senator, Chevron John, that is, for a very successful event in OA yesterday. I can't go beyond saying that I got a message and I'm still smiling from a message. Both is a good messenger, Chevron, and he just tried to water it down, but I'm smiling, but I got your message. But the point you're making, that quite apart from the sporting and success that they have, what she achieved it's reflective of what we used to have and who we used to be in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and something that we should aspire to sustain in St. Vincent and the Grenadines in several other communities, because it is simply as it looks like, it is what helps to keep communities together and cut across the political divide. And it is so much more successful when it is not artificially constructed, but when there's a natural glue, a natural cement, a natural coming together of people of different persuasions, politics and otherwise. But that the common good is greater than the individual interest. And I think from all the reports that was achieved yesterday, so it's good to see sports back in the community in the way that it is, and embracing and bringing all the villages and communities together, and that the spirit and camaraderie exists, and people know how to have good, clean fun. And if we could multiply that both across several communities in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, we will be richer for it. I think at one time, Sinel used to be that kind of community. When Sinel is wrong park, the whole of Sinel goes down. And that also happened when they had a funeral, the whole of Sinel went down. Calico, the greater Calico Basin, Prospect and so forth, used to have some aspect of that. And there's still remnants of it. Montrose, my old home village, had strong elements of that. The Marico Valley, if you go all the way back down to Populatum days, Mr. Community man himself, you would have found that. Greg's Lauders, Pito, Battle and Company down there, and before his time, the Grenadines, Potted Farm, Port Elizabeth, and smaller communities in the Grenadines, Mayo, with their own cultural things, Union Island and so forth. So it's important to bring us back together as a people. So congrats. and do it again. And don't let the detractors who try to hijack you and high fall you along the way detour you from do it one more time. I think the people understand your natural chemistry, and you're a winner. I think that's what I said in my private post to you. You're a winner. And if you do this and do it over again, then surely we'll win the thing only. So congrats, Javon.
Definitely, that was really good. A good showing, and I know when Dr. Friday come on, he'll be with us. I expect that he'll also expand on that. Right? Major, a lot of things over the weekend. In particular, we had the situation with the fire. And I don't know, my computer seemed today to want to give me a lot of issues because there's some things I wanted to highlight before I get your take on it. But you follow those events, and it would be nice to hear your take on it. I'm trying to see if
well, the fire was in Central Kingston, and the other issues that you want to go on to the one, at least one of the other events, the shooting that has a Central Kingston component to it. But just before I get there, and I wouldn't belabor the point and stay there, but because you made the point, we will not have our usual Wednesday program, and I'm sorry I'm going to miss Andrew John and South World Posse and socializing on Wednesday. But Wednesday is a very important day in the region's calendar. In our calendar in St. Vincent and Grenadines, it is what we refer to as Labor Day. Is the day in which we feature the working class and in particular the role of the trade union movement in promoting the workplace relations. I know that has changed its form and fashion. In the good old days, in many Caribbean countries, it would be evidenced by a lot of march up and down the country, singing the union songs, and many jurisdictions. Barbados comes to mind, Trinidad and Tobago, Jamaica. It was a situation in which the unions were able to separate the politics from the industrial relations practice and the workers' interests. Unfortunately, in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, that has gone by the way. There's no longer a functioning and active National Labour Congress as we know it. There's significant difference and disagreements and disharmony among the trade union movements here. Some clearly, people say, bought out or openly canvassing for the government, and in the process compromising and watering down the effectiveness of trade unionism. But to their credit, the Public Service Union and the Teachers Union keeping the good old tradition together. I don't think they would necessarily have marches and other events, but certainly they're at the wheel and doing what they have to do. And I say in that regard, but it is of some interest, in fact, great interest. Two things there. One, that within a day or two of the Labor Day celebrations, the Court of Appeal will meet in Antigua to address the vaccine mandate issue, which has implications for us, specifically here in St. Vincent and Grenadines, but in other jurisdictions as well. And one has to be more than optimistic that the decisions of the law court, which found the government at fault virtually on all legal grounds, would be upheld. And I say that because in many international jurisdictions, certainly in Australia, in some places in Canada, some parts of America, in England, even as the debate wages on, most courts have been finding in favor that the dismissal of workers for not taking vaccines is unfair, and so on and so forth. So I suspect that the unions can anticipate a favorable outcome. But there is a big ask the callers to hold a while. Let us finish our introductory contributions if they're listening, unless there's some fire nearby which we have to really get out of this building on. The fact of the matter about, which is more important than Labor Day itself or the vaccine mandate itself, is that it captures properly where we are today, 2024, in St. Vincent the Grenadines. This is a Unity Labour Party in the 23rd, 24th year of governance that came into government on the backs of the trade union movement, with marches up and down St. Vincent the Grenadines, and in some cases quite unlawful behavior and unruly conduct, to satisfy a proclamation of making the country ungovernable. And this Labour Day meets the government with another first. It's the first in the living history of this country that the government has been at war with the labor movement and for so long a period of time, and is literally using the constitutional instruments and the courts as a sword against the labor movement. And this is terrible for an administration that proclaims themselves to be, as they would like to say, a labor government. You know, that they find themselves in the court and by their own statements, shamelessly embarrassing themselves to proclaim that if they did not succeed or if they don't succeed in the court of appeal in the Caribbean, Eastern Caribbean, that they are prepared to go to the Privy Council, the very colonial masters that they have been chanting for years and years and years, but in a self-sovereign way. They're prepared to ignore all sense of political hygiene, industrial relations, morality, and good common decency and workers' interests to make so many people suffer and suffer and suffer, or to use their own words, to suffer and die. Because clearly, a lot of public servants have died as a consequence of the hard and oppressive exposure they've had over the years. So this is not a good time for the labor movement in the sense that they are embattled with the government, but in the same breath, it is an opportunity, and let us look forward it and see the cup as being half full, that victory may well be at hand. And all those teachers, policemen, nurses, public servants across the board who have endured for the last several years may be able to say, victory at last, victory at last. Thank God for our Court of Appeal. We have secured a victory. So I'm crossing my fingers. I know Dr. Friday is there, and the New Democratic Parties. And I want to congratulate the legal team, Joe Thomas and Zita Barnwell. And I don't remember, I think one of the colleagues is out of Dominic or Grenada. I don't know all the place of the legal team. But clearly, on a winner's might, the legal team has done well to represent the unions. And I also want to congratulate in a very personal way President Robinson, because he's one of the Vincentians who have shown that he has backbone. And I also want to congratulate my own cousin and family, Boucher, because these two presidents have stood up like beacons in the industrial relations vineyard at this time when St. Vincent needs it most. So that's been more than a mouthful. And I look forward to celebrating with them. And I will start that celebration on Wednesday, of all places, in Bequia, and with another person who's an extremely good job, another good president, Dr. Friday, who will be holding his May Day fair. But I intend to pay for a ticket for yourself for the boat ride. Just show up at the wharf, but
you're taking care of my ticket.
Just show up at the wharf, but
all right. So
one condition, you have to go on the boat before me.
But you're live on radio and Facebook and all that. No, I'm just saying that.
You're kind of a little too confident. You're kind of a little too confident.
I want to make sure.
No. If Breton was listening, I would go ahead boldly, but I'm not Arsenal god. Yes.
I just want to make sure. I just want to make sure because you
Nah,
you keep
nah.
your promise
Nah,
and
you
everything.
have something up your sleeve. You like one of them good old referee and in the pocket there, and you know that they gripping the red card they want to.
Major, and I'm more serious note.
Not more serious note, an equally serious note.
Equally serious note. All right, so
Not
let's
more
do that.
serious. This is serious.
Let me set the call. Just hold the calls a bit, please. Let's hold the calls a bit. I am sure. Just hold the calls a bit. Mitch, I'm gonna play for you two things quickly. And then I'll leave you to one. I hope I get it. I'm gonna play it from my phone. Is a call into Hot 97 this morning by the former General Secretary of the New Democratic Party, Tyrone James, and he, being in that area for quite a bit. And I also, a minute or so to introduce a video, but I'm not going to play the video for my Witness News, but to put it in context. All right, so
the callers listen to the radio program?
Just a second. Let me do this. Good morning, Mr. Hello.
Morning, Brother
Good morning, Mr. Hazelwood.
Mr. Hazelwood.
Could you call back, please?
I ain't gonna be long.
No, Mr. Hazelwood, we have been begging to hold the call until we deliver what we have to do. That for us. Have that little patience with us, please. Let us finish our floor and then you'll make a call. Please. Please.
Thank you.
Come on, man.
All right, so I'm gonna play that. Let me hope I get it good coming from my phone first, and we don't get a feedback. Let me see now if I can get.
The issue of hydrants around St. Vincent, we can't put that on the fire service, right? That is a government situation. But the knowledge of where the hydrants are located, that's a fire service thing. And they should have known where they are, if it's at Levergans or wherever. Now, moving from that, traditionally, or historically over the years, fire services have seen it as an important aspect of law and order in St. Vincent. It was a place where persons who were bad and so on were sent. And even right now, that sort of thing still resides with the fire service. They're not seen as very important.
She's a dumping ground.
Right. Now, the other thing is that
Not seen as important by who?
by the government and the administration. Now, well,
Why not?
because they have a law and order outlook. Their thing is law and order, crime and so on. Fire was not that important. Okay, because in St. Vincent,
I think it's hard to argue that though with the Sparrow.
Well, no.
With the Sparrow
No,
murder rate, because it doesn't look like the law and order is that important either.
Yeah, well, no, we will look at it that way, but remember, it's all a political calculation, you know.
Right.
Now, in 2005, this government contracted Orville Durant, an ex-commissioner of police of Barbados, to come to St. Vincent and conduct an assessment of the police force with the intent of making some changes. Durant wrote a report, and in that report, he made several recommendations. I'm going to go into four. One recommendation was that the immigration department be separated from the police. The next one was that the Coast Guard be separated. And the next one was the fire service be separated. Now, along with that, he made other recommendations, but he also made a recommendation that the increase the assistant commissioner of police, I think it's from 2 to 3, right? Now, the immigration was separated. Why? Because immigration is a money-earning department. So the government could get money. If it becomes more efficient, more money to the government coffers. Okay? Now, the only other recommendation that was implemented was the one with the 3 assistant commissioners. And I'll tell you why. At some point in the police arrangement, Ronald Christopher was sent up to be for consideration promotion to ACP. He was the police service commission recommended that he be promoted. the government did not want Christopher. They wanted somebody else. And they insisted that Christopher, that recommendation be taken back and the thing sent in for who they wanted. But the Police Service Commission at that time, under Stoddard, refused. He was therefore forced to create the third position of ACP to put the person he wanted there because he couldn't get around the Service Commission. Now, over the years, we have seen the fire service decline. And one of the things is that if you get fire truck from, say, British and American, the fittings are different. So when we beg and we get things, sometimes it cannot match with what we have. Because even the hoses, actually the hoses are different.
Surely we could retrofit these things.
Well, you'll have to take off all the heads and change them.
So all the couplings and then it'll be different.
Yes, or you have to change all the hoses. Because when the fire truck comes, it comes with hoses.
How big a deal is that?
Well, for us, it is big because because we have not only that, but the cost of these things. Remember, we don't produce these things to bring them and buy them and so on. Because we get most what we get is second-hand stuff that we beg for. And the other thing is you'll find that because we have so much disparate types of equipment, we can't have spare parts for all of these. If we had one kind of, say, fire plans, we could store one spare part.
Yeah.
But we have different types. So we have to store for everyone, another small country. We can't. That is why you have so much truck and vehicle, a graveyard down on its hill. Because we can't store all these parts. You know? Now, I don't want to take up more time, so maybe we'll chat another time.
Yeah, all right, buddy.
Yeah?
But you balance that. Interesting. We'll come back. You balance that. Right?
All right, so that was that call. And quickly, Major, let me just give this because I think the time frame, this is from Eyewitness News.
Eyewitness News, and I'm here at the scene of a fire in Kingston Park, which is just outside our capital city, Kingston. I've been here for about 20, 25, 30 minutes. Closer to 30 minutes. Initially, I had tried to make a live broadcast, but because of where I'm located, the mobile signal is pretty weak. But that was probably a good thing because for the last few months or so, I've been working on a story about the state of the fire service in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And this morning, what happened here gave a really good demonstration of where we are and why in so many instances when properties catch fire in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, they end up being completely destroyed by that blaze. I'm going to invite you to watch about 20 minutes of footage. In it, I say pretty much nothing. Well, I can't remember saying anything whatsoever. And you can come to your own conclusions about what is going on in our country. Like I said, over the last few months, I've been working on a story about the state of the fire service in our country. I will continue to work on that story, give the authorities an opportunity to comment. But for the time being, I just want you to take a look.
So let me pause that. He said he was there for about half an hour, and then he gave you 20 minutes of footage. In this footage, the fire service along with water authorities seem trying to hook up a hose to out the same fire. So while they're doing that for half an hour plus 20 minutes, the house is burning right there in the video. I leave both recording and I go to you, Major.
Well, first of all, we have to be very grateful to former Coast Guard commander, senior police officer, Tyrone James, a university graduate, in the field of management, former sportsman. We have to thank him for a very candid and in-house practical experience of what obtained in the police force. And I think he's accurate for almost all the way through his contribution. It's a sad indictment of very many people. It's an indictment, first of all, of the police service itself, and they are joined by the government of the day. I don't accept that the situation of the staffing of the fire department is a consequence of the government. I put that solely on the feet of the police administration.
Okay.
But to the best of my knowledge, I think, if not currently, sometime back, the head of the fire unit was a fairly qualified person all the way up to the degree of the level of a master's degree, and had been well staffed. But he's correct in all the other points. It's been quite some time, even before the Durant report, that we have made the call for the fire service to be separate from the police service. We had historical evidence in the Caribbean for that. St. Lucian is a case in point where Castries is almost burnt down, and out of that experience, the Castries police force is separated. You go to Trinidad and Tobago, you see the police fire service there on Ricing Road, and they're in large numbers. And the fire department, over and above the fire, they provide very valuable emergency services in other areas. So you want them for vehicular accident, other ambulance services, although that should be separated by itself. So I accept fully. And the truth be told, as representative for the city, I brought those issues to the parliament before as a question, which to address the question of the state of the fire hydrants, the proper painting and markings and promotion that people know where they are, and the drills too by the police fire department to be able to do that, because there must be a relationship in any built-up area that you have fire hydrants put out there. So there's also a governmental and a statutory cooperation there with the water authority, because as far as I'm concerned, I was told in that question, I remember that, the water authority has some responsibility for seeing that the fire hydrants are properly maintained. So it's a joint thing between themselves and the fire department. Many people of the older generation recall the days in the city when regularly you would find members of the police department going about the town, checking to see that the fire hydrants are working, doing different drills and testing of them and so forth to make sure that those things are in place. But just in case people ask, what do I know about that? I don't speak just because I was former commandant of the cadets or former commandant of the auxiliary police force. But when Gorton Olivier was in charge of the police fire department, Gorton Olivier of Beckway, both of us went abroad to pursue our course in civil defense by the Venezuelan Ministry of Youth and Firefighting, including the specialized area of firefighting at airports, was pretty much a part of the drill and preparation that we went through. And I also had the benefit of going all the way to Japan. I think the village that I stayed in was in Nagoya, where I was exposed to firefighting in Japan and firefighting from the point of view of households, how they deal with fires during Japanese winter, as they call it, and the fire drills that families go through on a weekly basis to take care of things. Now, this fire happened to be in Kingston Park, which is part of my constituency. So I understand even more so the gravity of the situation. But I looked at you started the program with Warner Manny song, This Is a Comedy Country. I looked at the water authority guy trying to get started an engine to cut a pipe. Hopefully that some magic that if he cut the pipe, he would be able to fit a hose directly over the pipe and assist the out in the fire. Well, I'll tell you that because it doesn't have the proper coupling arrangement. I don't know who's going to hold that hose over that pipe to feed the fire hydrant. So that would not have worked, and there would be no clamp available to clamp that hose back to that pipe. So I don't know how that was going to work. That makeshift hydrant that they were attempting to set up. But it shows how people can lose the way, people could panic, and shows the disregard. And it is contemptuous of the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And that's why I've been having a refrain over and over again, St. Vincent needs to re-establish a Ministry of Home Affairs. Yes, there will be different ministerial portfolios, some of it in community development here, some there, some in other places. But we need to go back to the sense where we have a state that somebody is in charge of looking after our country and our business and the very many facets of Vincent's life. And I say that because if you contrast it with the emphasis that we have on the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, dangling in the business of everybody else, whether it's at the level of the United Nations, whether it is telling off the World Bank, whether it is telling off, whether it's showing our case of ourselves in CELAC, whether it's being on the Security Council, whether it is being in this jurisdiction, that jurisdiction, the other jurisdiction, there is this very heavy presence and every Monday morning absence of the Prime Minister for the main part on foreign affairs missions and coming back with a little sugar cake and groundnut and so forth, and of course the usual scholarships because that has a political benefit. But we need a serious inward look of what's happening in St. Vincent de Grendy and the fire service performance. And I don't blame the men because they could only work with the tools they have. And it's time we rid ourselves with this notion that some well-meaning ambassador waits until Canada or whoever rejects a particular appliance and don't question whether that is applicable in terms of the size, the storage, the equipment, the couplings, the uniforms, the whole apparatus with our own domestic cities, and simply get a coat of paint and send it to someone and said, I have done well, extend my service a little bit more. Because that's where we are. The fire department really needs to be detached. Just as Tyrone made the case, the Coast Guard service needs to be detached from the police force. And for those of us who have had military exposure would know that in all of the Caribbean jurisdictions, Barbados, Kissimmee, Trinidad and Tobago, wherever there are defense forces in particular, or wherever you separate the Coast Guard and put it under the military unit, you get a far more effective Coast Guard service. And I know about that. Because I was at grammar school in 79. One of the persons in the white paper, I've been around, and done a few things. When I got Cambridge at the time to leave grammar school to go and join the Coast Guard, Robin, who became head of the Coast Guard, to leave grammar school, Tibbles left as well to go and join the Coast Guard. And a couple guys there from St. Martin's School went on to do that. My own brother, Alvin Dr. Leacock, wanted to go into the Coast Guard, did not get into it for reasons I will not discuss at the moment, but he was one of those. So I know it's the cadets and senior cadets who initially went off to be in the formation of the Coast Guard. So I know about that too, and an establishment. So I agree with that. And everybody understands, of course, taking away the immigration department, but that is still a part of border control and border patrol, and they still have relationships with the police force. So separate an autonomous thing don't mean that there's not a nexus between them. But St. Vincent is in a bad place, a very dark place at this time. But it confirms, and I'll always loop it back to this. We talk about the pillars, yes, of agriculture and blue economy and new economy and so forth. But ultimately, if you you can't buy fine wine on Morby pockets. And ultimately, that event which happens at the start of every year, in which we are dishonest with our budgetary preparations, where we do not have the money on either the recurrent or the capital side to finance, maintain, sustain, and provide the various agencies of government with the tools that are required for the performance of the duties, we will continue to be in a ramshackle state for a long, long time. And people could say that the NDP are in its wilderness years and it's have old people and you need young people and you need that kind of people. But ultimately, you need people who know their ass from the elbow to run the country. And right now, we're not seeing that evidence in this regime. And Dr. Friday's refrain is always, if you want that change, you got to change the government. So that's me on the ambulance service. I agree with Tyrone. I agree with my own brother's piece. And on all the others who have been made recommendations. And when we didn't get Christopher to be an assistant commissioner of police, even go up to the board of commissioner and people like Action, all of those things, that is also a watershed. Because it's from those times that the police force started this very rapid decline. And in my mind, for which it has never recovered, notwithstanding a number of outstanding policemen who have come through, including the assistant commissioner of police for crime, Bailey and his brother who is there at the prisons, who I taught when he was a recruit, when I used to be a lecturer. I used to be a lecturer at the police in school, you know. When I was at Vinlec, I'll go up there in uniform and deliver lectures in leadership and in communication and other things. So I know about these things. And the last one, but because we want to leave it in decent time, I want to make a comment, and I don't know, is the last week was not a good week for St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
Okay.
We had a number of deaths. I don't know the difference between the word death and homicides and murder. I understand that, but I express condolence and sympathy to the Eustace family again on the passing of Dr. Ann Eustace. I believe that might have been some misadventure, and I haven't heard anything onwards, and it's so sad that Ann had to lose her life that way. But we also had, and we don't know what the cause, if it was natural death, natural cause, let me put that, of the guy whose body they found decomposed in Argyle.
Sure. Okay.
So that was another discovery. We had an ANN report. I haven't seen and heard the police report, so I'm being cautious in saying so, of a body drifting at sea yesterday in North Leeward. And the report that covered that, one of the news media houses said that it seemed to have had bullet wounds. I don't know how they could have said that or whatever it is.
I heard that.
But if those are three mishaps, deaths, tragedies, too many in a small 150 square mile country in 1 week. But I have something specific I want to say. I know the party's position on it, on crime and violence, for which I'm the spokesperson. But yesterday, just by accident, I met the mother of the victim of the crime in Maurice Village, National Football. Again, shook hands with her. My sympathies go out for another young life lost. Let's note a few things quickly before we get into Dr. Friday's time and space. I don't know. I call 20 years to be a generation.
Okay.
So 20 years. So for every 20 years, there's a new generation. Let me put that with you. So let's see life in a little bit of a cycle. So the people who voted for the ULP force in 2001 at age 18 are approaching 38, 40 years now. And the people who voted for the first time in 2005 at 18, 20, at the age 23, 25 now. So generally speaking, people between the age 23 to age 40 are of the Youth Labour Party's generation. To use local language, they're Gonzales Pickney. They're the children of the revolution. You can't have it both ways. Near 95% of the murders, the homicides, in particular in the southern belt, southern horn of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, the Kingstowns, South Leeward, up to East St. George, almost 95% are young people under the age of 40.
Definitely.
Under the age of 40. So he has to say that is a part of his responsibility. That's a part of his legacy. And I don't move rapidly to the cause that there will not always be crime and violence and poverty among us. The poor will always be among us. And I do not always put all accidents, all murders, all homicides at the feet of crime and violence, because we have all been of value laden society. There's greater poverty in our societies many, many years ago, when our parents and grandparents had to live within the means and make ends meet. That was always there. But something radical has happened to St. Vincent. I haven't seen the media houses carry anything that I said when we had the parliament discussion on the crime and violence and those issues in the parliament. Nothing about that, you know. They're quick to carry and showcase other things, which are almost stale. You know, some people much prefer, but we don't like to eat stale bread. But if we toast it, we find it's great.
Tastes better.
It tastes better, So some people love toast, There's something that's not happening. One, I repeat what I've said from my observation. There is a significant number of young men. It doesn't matter what that quantity is, but whatever it is enough to create disharmony in the society. There's a sufficiency of them who have taken leave of our society. They don't care what you say here from Monday to Friday, what Collins says, what Friday says, Cummins, Leacock, Chevron, Bernard, Margaret. My brethren there on Friday, Father and company, and even those guys inside, they have nothing to do. They are in a totally different world. How did they get there? Requires study. Even something last year, the Prime Minister called me on some other matters, and I referred him back to that. And he told me the Institute of Social and Economic Research and one or two individuals at our university, West Indies, are into these studies. I'm concerned about what's happening in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, right? When I spoke in the Parliament on that crime and violence, I spoke of the experience and the privilege that I had and others had when we were in the cadets in the 70s and 80s, of a very successful program called Caribbean program. It's a Caribbean cadet exchange program in which Canada provided an aircraft and left Canada and came down to the south of the Caribbean. It dropped off Canadian cadets in Jamaica, in Barbados, in Trinidad, and went all the way down to Guyana. And those of us who didn't have international airports at the time went to what we call staging points, where they went to Barbados to catch the plane, or to Trinidad to catch the plane, either by way of our police boats, police launches, or Coast Guard, and we made it run. And the plane went back up to Canada and took Caribbean cadets up to Canada. That's how many of us got our military training, and some of us learned cadetting and military and all these things in a very detailed form, right? It was a leadership program, albeit of a military kind. I use that design to say, maybe in our foreign relations call, maybe in our home affairs requests, we can call for similar kind of assistance, either from the U.S. Southern Command, or again from Canada, or from the United Kingdom, to assist us in a similar program, not necessarily confined to the cadets themselves. You may even be able to broaden it to sports and to cultural groups. But fundamentally, the time has arrived for us to have what I call a kind of boot camp program in our islands. We have some success in that regard in what the Coast Guard has done over summer programs, and many other people have summer programs of all forms and fashion to mold minds and fashion people in a way. But a lot of our young people need to be put into boot camp program to discipline themselves, to regiment themselves, and to order themselves. That's one limb. The second limb, which I go back to the fact that a lot of our young people between the age of 25 and 40 have taken leave or have lost their way. And remember, I'm always making this case and argument for us to be a second chance society. There's something that happens that we don't know about, because I was in my constituency in a detailed way over the last weekend, in particular on Friday evening, and in the communities where some of these crimes take place. And here it is. I have to be careful. I have to be very, very careful, because sometimes if I show an interest in a homicide, I have to be careful that I don't rub the victim's family the wrong way and seem to be offending the perpetrators in another way. Quite apart from the fact that you may become exposed yourself to these guys who have a tendency to want to be in a life of crime. But you get reports, and I say this without prejudice, of some communities feeling relieved, because sometimes people say, well, boy, the people here were under virtual curfew. They were under siege. This happened, that happened, and the other happened. People saw this, that, and I'm not speaking to a specific case, I'm trying to speak in a generalized case. our society is aware, very often of young people who are losing. Up this morning, waiting in the bank line, and I saw whether he's vagrant, whether he's mentally ill, or whether he's otherwise, came up to me, went to others in the line, and you have to be guarded. They don't know when guy may just pull a knife out of his pocket or do something silly that could be threatening. But our society generally are aware when something is going wrong or not so right about an individual. But it remains nobody's business. I can bet you that if you check a lot of these people who have come before the courts or are discovered to be in what it comes gangs or whatever it is, people will tell you that it's a long time. Or he dropped out of school.
True.
You had problem with him in his football club. You know, he stopped going to church. All of a sudden, he hanging out here with this. He find new company and all sorts of things. In other words, we can trace back, and remember that word, trace back, a lot of behavioral things
From the early inception. Yes.
from the old inception.
Okay.
Since in school, this person who came into Form 2 and 3 as this bright prospect suddenly started to go differently. But it remained nobody's business because we don't have the old safety nets where people either went to school or whatever. I started by asking, what is a cycle, you know? I don't do my 3 school and 10. In your early 20s, you have your children. In the next 20, 25 years, your children have their children. You become a grandparent. And if you're lucky, your children's children have their children, and you become a great-grand. Maybe by the time you turn 70 and so forth going up. A lot of people now in the 30s have great-grand, you know. Not great-grand, have grand. A lot of 30-year-olds can tell you that they have grandchildren. That used to be for people in the 50s. You understand?
Yeah, fine.
People don't have time to parent their own children, much less to grandchildren and other children. In fact, some love their grandchildren and encourage them to have more children. I mean, keep my construction very careful. The point I'm making, we need to have either whether this is going to be social welfare or an amalgam of government ministries that are beginning to get into trace programs where they can begin to say where these things went wrong. Where suddenly a guy who was talented either start to get violent in their very own football club. The manager can't talk, the president can't talk to him, the coach can't talk to him. He stopped playing football. Or she stopped doing this. And they start to become the new company. But again, it's nobody's business. You follow what I'm saying?
I'm with you now.
We need to start doing the traces. But simultaneously, whether it's going to be the counselors or some other new sets of job titles persons have to start taking an interest in the society to begin to pay more attention to those young people who are falling through the cracks, to get them back to the straight and to narrow, and to get them into second chance opportunities to save them from themselves. There's an urgency for that. And to confront aggressively this iniquitous culture of crime and violence that's emerging in St. Vincent and Grenadines. We can't just leave it to a politicization of the argument.
I'm with you.
It has to be deeper than that.
Major, as you spoken, I remember some years back, I was in charge of the National Youth 20, Under 20 team, and we were training in Victoria Park. It was myself and Roger Gurley. And they had this guy that came training late. He's very talented. So I told him a day, and I spoke to him kind of harsh.
Yeah.
If you don't come early, well, I give him a punishment to do some extra work and running and things. And if you don't come early next time, don't come back. And while he looked at me, hard, if you know, well, in Vincentian language, I mean. But he went and did the running. And then some of the other guys say, boy, but you know, well, who is his connection and what? Well, he's trying out, not my interest. Then they start to give me a little history. So he had that tendency heading that way.
Yeah.
But once I spoke to him, he came training. And then I put him in charge. So if I want the team to do X, Y,
yeah,
he was in charge.
yeah.
And if I want them to do something at 3 o'clock or reach for 3 o'clock, he was in charge.
Yeah.
And he changed.
Yeah. But I remember, I mean, in the stories, we had a wrap up before Dr.
Yeah,
Friday.
Dr. Friday coming on immediately after the break. Yeah.
I remember a young man. I was in Cuba. I think it was in 2005. He was in the youth team. What we call that team that goes to what games that they play? Not
Pan,
not Pan, but it's one of the games that they have. I remember an infraction in which he broke the glass window and so on and so forth, and started show signs of being unruly. But the coach at the time was managing the situation, and he came to St. Vincent. The team was supposed to go to Abidjan, and they were going to secure a contract for him. And then they began to see him drifting off. But it is nobody's business. It's nobody's problem. You know, let me close by saying this, boy. If a young man now who's given up on society, who believe that liquor, all the talking, stropping is Friday, all the wasting my time, Gonzales, I don't have no time with all you. Wakes up a particular morning and say, boy, I think I'm going to try and turn myself around, my life around. Who does he call? Who takes on that responsibility to say, boy, look, we're glad for this call. You show up here tomorrow, 8 o'clock. We have some clothes for you. We have some tools for you. I'm going to take you to employer A, B, C, D, E. I'm going to put you under the care of Counselor X, Y, Z. We are going to give you a weekly stipend of $1, $2, $3. And at the next 6 months, you can choose whether you want to stay in this or go to something else. But we are certainly going to encourage you. And if you have other friends, tell them and bring them. A hotline, you know. We don't have that, you know.
I've heard.
You're on your own.
With all due respect to what's his name? The church at Gardner's Gate.
Yeah, Richards.
The
Baptist church.
Yeah, I've heard him on another station making that offer. And
well, Paul to him.
So
I'm glad to hear Dr. Richards making that.
The point you're making is very important.
But we need to have systems in place.
Definitely.
To address what I call systems failure among our young people, to create a new second chance opportunity. And I'm contemplating, you know, I'm contemplating doing an advertisement from the major, trying to reach out to young people. But if I do that, I have to make sure that I've thought through it, and that there are the resources and systems and people in place to follow through, because I don't know how deep the water is. So I don't want to find myself drowning with this for which I was not properly prepared. But we have to have a reach out and help program of tracing, assisting, accommodating, and turning people away. Not just to the traditional academic, or go to the skills base, or the sports base, or PAN against crime. As I said in the parliament, you know, if PAN was the solution to crime, Trinidad and Tobago would be the most successful place in the world.
Yeah.
Because the land of PAN, but they have escalating crime rate. If sports was the way out of crime, Jamaica too would have been the most successful Caribbean country. But both Jamaica and Trinidad and Tobago have the highest crime rates. So there's something else. Or there's some things else.
So those help, but
they help. But there's some things help. So I take leave and thank Dr. Friday for
the time.
accommodating me.
I just want to make one statement quickly, and leave it there. You mentioned something, but let's go. A young lady turned out a certain way. As you say, a guy turned out to be of a violent nature, and person could say, boy, that was inevitable. We don't see that happening. That lifestyle, from since sometime in primary school.
Yeah.
So, and we leave it. This, when I say we, the society,
I
we
know we have
leave it.
Genie down there, Marin House.
We
come
leave
to
it, we
mind as
leave
well,
it,
yeah,
we
yeah.
leave it until the person reach here. And I say, well, then we say, boys in the school, I know that's how he did. Or I know he do that. Or I know she would end up with maybe 10 children. Why nobody do it? Why nobody did anything?
You know, I went the other day,
Hmm.
4 weeks ago, to do a guest talk to a particular group of young people on invitation. The age range from between, say, 16 to about 20. So I just numbered them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 till you got them. So I then said, all even numbers raise their hand. All odd numbers raise it. You know that group between 16 and 20 don't know what's an odd number and what's an even number. I then asked, because the conversation led today, that same group to give me the names of 2 commercial banks in town. And nobody in the class could name 2 commercial banks.
So they're not part of the economic system.
In Kingston. And they are graduates out of our secondary school system. You understand? And that brings me to an experience I've had of giving a young person between age 16 and 20 a $100 bill. And they could not give you back the change.
Without
Not with calculator. They could not give you back the change on a $100 transaction. They just simply couldn't do it. And then, so when we talk about revolution, we're in a bad way. This country needs a good mix of our young professionals and our experienced, committed people to turn this country around. And maybe that's a good case for Dr. Friday and the New Democratic Party. Doc, thanks for the time. But thanks for the time. Okay. Happy Workers' Day and see you all in Beckway.
Thanks for the ticket. Why are you laughing? I don't like it. I only whole wall this politician promised me if I come, I'll get to you. Anyway, we're gonna close it down there because we have to take the break, and immediately following the break, we'll have Dr. Friday with us today. Okay, lots of things for him to discuss, including inviting us once again to that activity on Wednesday. Okay, so please.
Cool breeze, the sound of waves lapping against the shore,